Hello and welcome to our special coverage of the Make in India Week in Mumbai. I'm Mubina Kapasi. The Make in India Week is underway in India's financial capital, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the event touted as the largest business expo hosted by the country. Over the rest of the week, the government will showcase India as the preferred investment destination in a bid to attract foreign direct investments. Addressing an audience of business and political delegates from 68 countries, including prime ministers and representatives from 1,000 international companies, Modi reiterated his commitment to reforms, not the time for just incremental changes, but quantum leaps. Here's an excerpt of that interview.
We launch the Make in India campaign to create employment and self-employment opportunities for our youth. We are working aggressively towards making India a global manufacturing hub. We want the share of manufacturing in our GDP to go up to the 25% in the near future. We were also aware that under the pressure of this campaign, the government machinery will be required to make a number of corrections on the policy front. Make in India Week is an opportunity to take stock of how we have performed and what could be the road ahead. This is the biggest multi-sectoral event and exhibition ever held in India. Make in India has become the biggest brand that India have ever created. Today, India is perhaps the most open country for FDI. Most of the FDI sectors have been put on automatic approval route. Our FDI inflows have gone up by 48% since the day my government came into office. In fact, FDI inflow in December 2015 was the highest ever in this country.
The Make in India drive is coming at a time when there is a slump in the global economy, domestic demand is sluggish, and Indian banks are undergoing a crisis in the form of surging bad loans. So what is the task cut out for Finance Minister Arun Jaitley at the North Block to ensure the virtuous cycle of investment is kick-started? Let's listen in to the man himself.
As far as generating demand is concerned, the last few months has shown at least a significant improvement as far as urban demand is concerned. Rural demand, because of two lean seasons of monsoon, is still lagging behind, and that is one area where we in the months to come wish to concentrate on, exactly from this resource itself. Culture is one area where investment brings almost immediate results, because the results can be seen over the period of a few months itself. In infrastructure and industry, it still takes several years before you can get the results back. Now, over the years, the investment in agriculture has been relatively less. And to say that it's a stress sector of the economy, one can actually feel it. And therefore, agriculture deserves the very best.
When I look at an area that you have close knowledge of, the finance sector, this is a case where it seems to me you have these vast loss-making public entities that distort the market, create all kinds of complications, and do not provide much money at the end of the day to the people for whom who are meant to be the intended beneficiaries. They take 75% of India's savings, and yet you look at a bank like HDFC, which now has a larger market cap than the combined market cap of every state-owned bank. Isn't that a sign that you should get out of this business?
Well, I don't think India has reached a stage that India can get out of, the state can pull out of the banking altogether. Because if you see the last 3 to 4 decades, state sector banks also have performed a very important role. They've reached out geographically in areas where there was no banking. For instance, when you, just 20 months ago when this government took over, we still had a situation where only 58% of India was connected to banks. 42% of India had no bank accounts. And therefore, for the purposes of financial inclusion, for geographical reach, these banks had a very important role to play. But at the same time, what is the role of a political government as far as these banks are concerned? Does it have to maintain an arm's length distance from these banks? Of course it does have to do that. Should there be interference in the functioning of the banks? Absolutely not. Now, the bank boards have to be professionalized. The banks have to then work on banking considerations, something where we may have heard in the past. And this government is extremely particular about the fact that banks must be allowed to do so. You may need various kinds of reforms, including reforms in bringing government equity down. I've already announced that we'll be bringing government equity down in these banks to 51 or 52%, and therefore allow greater professionalization as far as these banks are concerned. What you suggest immediately, I don't think it's a part of the government's agenda at the moment.
Does the BJP, does your government, I mean, when I think about the fact that there isn't that much privatization happening, you said that the state-owned financial sector will continue. Much of what you're talking about is regulatory clarity, efficiency, and such. Do you view your job as to better run India's quasi-socialist economy, or to dismantle and reform India's quasi-socialist economy?
Well, I think I may not agree with you in the use of that phraseology itself. India's economy is increasingly becoming market-oriented, but at the same time, considering the large number of poor people we have, there is a special emphasis on safeguarding their interests through poverty alleviation schemes, job creation, and so on. Now, as far as since you mentioned privatization in the passing, well, it certainly was a part of the NDA government's agenda in the past. Though not exactly, there are a series of banking reforms which I am likely to announce, so I am not really dealing with that sector just now, because in the days to come you may find something on that. But strategic sales, certainly a part of the government agenda. But then over the last 1 year, the markets have been so volatile that the government has to take a considered decision with regard to the choice of timing when you do it. You don't do it when the stock markets are in a turmoil or in a high state of volatility. That may not be the best timing for taking those decisions. Certainly, if the markets do stabilize, some of those strategic sales are very much a part of my budget speech last year and a part of the government's agenda.
So is the Make in India campaign just about branding India as a global manufacturing hub, or does it need substantive changes in policy? And as corporates, what are the challenges that lie beyond the realms of policy making? Let's listen in to a star-studded panel of Indian and global business leaders highlighting their concerns.
You can't have a policy. It depends on which is the product and where you need to produce it. Let's say, for example, depending on proximity to the market. You can't have a policy, but I think it depends on the investment climate that that particular country has to offer. We are present across Asia, Korea, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. And I think for us and for the rest of the world, you just simply cannot ignore India. We have a set of problems, but you have a government here who has focused on manufacturing more than ever before. And I think what you focus on grows.
So I'd say, I think from a GE perspective, Make in India is more conveying a message that the country is open for business. And therefore the climate that you will find...
Did anybody doubt that India was open for business?
Well, I would say yes. I mean,
You've been here for 100 years.
That's right. But the nature, the intensity, And if you just go back about 4 or 5 years, maybe there was a sense of spreading wealth as opposed to creating wealth. And therefore, I think the message is different.
So what do you see as the relationship between the battle, if you like, the battle for growth between China and India?
I think there is going to be a definite transition and migration of some large-scale, low-cost work to India. My only concern and ambition is that should not be the only place we do battle. We have a chance to leapfrog China. Let me put it this way.
China will learn the art of higher cost production and will have leapfrogged India.
So let me put it this way. If you want to build brand India, you have to build global Indian brands. That's the way you secure the long-term lock on manufacturing. Otherwise, 5 years from now, you're going to be doing the show in Africa talking about the move from China to Africa. We need to get Indian companies to go out and build global brands and then be the arbiters of where manufacturing goes. That China hasn't really done well. They have got certain brands that are now making headway, and they've understood they need to do that. Indian companies need to leapfrog and build global brands. That's why I'm selling that scooter I want you to buy in the US. That's why it's being built there. And then once we build the brand, we can decide where to manufacture it.
India's role as an export-led, a domestic demand-led, where do you see Make in India ending up?
It's a situation where both coexist very happily. So the manufacturing bases that we set up would obviously cater to the huge domestic demand. You have an aspirational population, an aspirational generation, and therefore more consuming power as well. At the same time, it's a manufacturing hub for the world. So you will use India as a hub from where these products that you make are exported all over the world. So I think both of these large manufacturing base for the domestic market and for the entire world is something that we must aim to do.
So, India, Make in India versus Make in Thailand versus Make in Indonesia versus what's your litmus test?
Well, the lifeblood of manufacturing is innovation. It's what you invent. A lot of people focus on the factories and the structure. Those are important, but the lifeblood, the driving force is the innovation. So we put in 5 engineering centers in India to drive that innovation. We're putting in the 6th. We have over 5,000 engineers working full-time. The reason we're in India is because of the talent that we've been able to hire, the talent we've been able to bring into the company. The government of India is missing an opportunity, though, because it encourages local innovation or local activity and is not encouraging global innovation. And with the talent pool here, the government, if it encouraged global innovation, it would take it to the next level.
Now, hang on a second.
I've got to interject. I think I completely disagree with that. I think that in India you have companies like ours which are completely global and in every sense of the way, including for quality. And unless you innovate, I don't think you can really survive in a global environment. We operate out of India, we operate out of China, out of Malaysia. We've been in Thailand and Indonesia since the middle of the 60s. So to assume that Indian companies don't have global standards of innovation, I think is a misnomer.
Well, what did you mean by that?
My precise issue is on R&D credit from the government. And if we do R&D in India, for India, we get credit with the government. If we do R&D in India for global activity, we do not get credit. And I think that's a missed opportunity.
I think the issue with Indian companies, to be honest, is that we don't have the kind of resources to do fundamental research and to spend billions of dollars on basic R&D. So that is an area where we are dependent on from companies in the West. Having said that, I think from on the specific point that you made, I think that is something that the government can work on.
Hi, welcome back. You're watching the special coverage of the Make in India Week right here on ET Now. CISCO Systems Executive Chairman has big plans for the company's India operations. Speaking exclusively to ET Now, John Chambers said India is setting an example for digital revolution for the rest of the world. He's also very optimistic about India's contribution to CISCO's revenue to increase to as much as 10% from the existing 2%. Here's a slice of that conversation.
If you watch Make in India, it is part of a digital platform that's going to transform this country. It will result in growth of probably 1 to 3% GDP more than you would have been able to do otherwise. But it is just part of the platforms. It's also Startup India, it's Reskill India, it's the Environmental India, it's Secure Industry, etc., and Smart Cities. So these together, I think, will be the model for the whole world. Make in India gives a tremendous opportunity and confidence for many of us to invest in India. I'm all in. But remember, 18 months ago, I said if there's one country to bet on the world, it is India, before everybody saw the results. And 10 years ago, we bet in CISCO. We made it our second world headquarters. We're doubling down again. We are going to manufacture in Pune, and we made that announcement yesterday. So we are committed to this country. It's the right place to do business, and it's a great partnership, not just for India, but for the world.
Any few things that still need a change and which would make life much easier for MNCs like you here?
Well, I think it was what your Prime Minister did so effectively. As head of USIBC, United States India Business Council, but also as CISCO's executive chairman, I think we're making the progress on what we need to do. It's how do you outline a vision and strategy where the country's going, what are the elements within it, how do you knock down the roadblocks, i.e. easier place to do business, skills that you need for it, etc., regulatory issues. And what the Prime Minister said last night was amazing. He said, take one step toward us, and we would take 2 steps towards you. And that's all you can ask. It's been great progress. In 18 months, look how far this country's come. And I believe the country has to have more confidence in your future. I think this can change every citizen in India's future in a very positive way. Will it be hard? Yes. Will there be occasional setbacks? Yes. But this is a leader I believe in a country we're betting our future on.
And how big are the plans for CISCO in India now?
The plans are bigger than ever before. We would like to see CISCO India move from $1 billion operation to us, which is about 2% of our business, to 5% and then 10%. But more important than that, we would like to play a role as India becomes the example for the world of what a digital world is all about and the futures this means in terms of transitions going on. So I think India will be the model for the rest of the world. CISCO would be honored to be India's partner in making that happen.
Now, meantime, domestic manufacturers in India believe that creating the requisite infrastructure is crucial for the success of the Make in India campaign. And that's where a company like Jindal Steel hopes to find a role. Here's Vijay Iyer in conversation with Ravi Uppal, the group MD and CEO.
Make in India means a lot. I mean, our company, what it does today is not what it was doing 5 years ago or 10 years ago. We're constantly evolving into new products, new applications, and many things which used to be imported in this country. I'm talking about the grades of steel. We are sort of manufacturing them in India. To that extent, we have done indigenization.
Mr. Uppal, if I could just ask you, as you say, reinvention is going to be the way forward. We all know how challenging times are for the whole of steel industry as a whole. From a Jindal Steel perspective, how are you looking at things? What is the area that you are looking where primarily the business is going to come? Any particular verticals that you are discussing now, that where you see the focus would be going forward?
I think the question asked by you is very interesting. You know, India, given our present state of development, is going to focus a lot on building its infrastructure. We have to build many more new towns, smart towns, and therefore the huge focus on infrastructure. Some of the basic ingredients of making infrastructure is our business, which is basically steel and construction products.
And Ajit Gulabchand, Chairman and MD of HCC, is confident that Make in India will ensure investment in service and the manufacturing sector, thereby creating jobs across India.
Let us understand first the challenge that India faces. It has to produce 300 million jobs in the next 20 years, 30 crore jobs. These are 1 million jobs a year, new jobs. Now this can happen only when investment happens, and investment can happen substantially in services and manufacturing. The share of manufacturing in India's GDP is ridiculously low. It's almost 12.5%. Normally in a good big sized domestic consumption country it should be at least 20-25. And this first is therefore to restore this balance, because manufacturing doesn't just create jobs in manufacturing, but appurtenant jobs related to that.
Are things on ground really changing? Is infrastructure side moving the way we had expected?
They're not moving as fast as we would like, but you can see that Gadkari Sahab in the roads. From 2 kilometers per day, they've pushed it to 6. And obviously his target of 30, which will take some time to achieve. So you can see the efforts all in order to create the environment on one side. On the other side, to actually bring about government expenditure in infrastructure so you can kickstart the economy. And I think this is where they're going. Is it still happening fully? No, it isn't. Obviously not. But is it moving in that direction? Yes.
So on the budget side, what are the expectations
I
from?
told you I have no expectation. I cannot second guess. But I always ask for one thing: cut taxes, reduce the interest rate, and reduce the obstacles of doing business.
Now, while the government wants India to be a global manufacturing hub, it is also pitching India as a big potential market for global manufacturers. Here's a view from IKEA and Nissan, the two big consumer-oriented multinational companies that have already brought into the Indian promise.
A week like this is very important for us because we have big plans for India. As you know, we've been actually sourcing from India for over 30 years already. We've been sourcing cotton materials, carpets, some plastic and some metals. And now we're branching out and we're starting our retail expansion. So being part of this, showing what we stand for, I think is really important.
Patrick, if I could ask you in terms of your business plans, if you could throw some light, how many stores are operational at this point of time? How is 2016 going to be an important year for you, for your business plans to roll out on ground?
Well, 2016 will be super exciting because we're actually just as of next week starting to level the ground for our first store in India. And it's going to be in Hyderabad and it will open in mid-2017. So 16 will be a lot of construction for us, of course. Very exciting. Then we're also continuing to work on our sourcing side because IKEA is a brand that want to be affordable for the many people. So we have a very low price point. And the local sourcing will give us those opportunities. Today we source for around 300 million euros, but we need to double that the coming 5 years to become up to maybe 600-700 million euros. Looking ahead, of course, the bigger investment comes now with the store expansion. So we have, I think to 2025, we're looking at about 10,500 to 12,000 crores in retail stores. In addition to that will be the distribution setup, where we'll build warehouses and distribution centers for another big chunk of money. So it's major investments. IKEA is very committed to India.
I think the importance is huge. Because I think the realization is dawning upon every part of the world that India is the country for the future. Because you've seen other big countries, whether it is Russia, whether it is China, there are challenges. And India being a very large domestic global market, and plus we have a fairly regulated and fairly vibrant democracy, it holds a lot of promise. So for every company, every organization, India is very critical. And we have had a lot of bottlenecks, in whether it's in terms of infrastructure, whether in terms of regulatory rules. So unshackling those and tapping the untapped potential of the Indian democratic divide is an opportunity for us.
Talking about Nissan, how does Nissan look at India as a market and what's the plans like?
See, Nissan is a large company, and internationally we sell more than 5.5 million vehicles, and there were certain countries, whether it's USA, whether it is China, whether it's Japan, whether it's the Middle East, all countries which are the barometers of economic growth, automobile growth. Nissan has been strong, and some countries we have made a late entry, whether it was Mexico, China. But once we got a house in order in terms of investing in infrastructure, factory R&D, we really stick to the country and we grow over time.
So talking about India, sir, how's the journey been and going ahead? Where are we looking to go?
So we set up a world-class R&D facility, a world-class manufacturing plant which is now working on full capacity. I believe, we are looking, one is some international models which we bring to India, which are the Mark II models, the Halo models in the world, but some models specifically made for the Indian market, which we want to introduce in the near future.
All right, and that's all we have for you on this special coverage of the Make in India Week. From me and the entire team that put this show together, thanks for watching.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.